Fire Radio.
What's happening, everyone? Welcome back to another episode of The Size Up by National Fire Radio, because what you do off the job matters. And if you're tuned into video today, I always say video because I like to talk about what I'm wearing or whatever, because, Jeremy does like to say I'm a big fashion guy. But I'm rocking my Wrexham AFC hat today that I just finally got, and I've been excited about this. So that's something I do off the job, is I'm into being a Wrexham supporter, which is anyone who knows anything about football in Europe knows that Rob McElhenney and Ryan Reynolds bought this team. They started a TV show, and my son Finn and I started watching, and we became supporters. It just so happens that a local Irish pub called Killarney's, right near my house, had other Wrexham supporters there. And we have started the first recognized American or United States, whatever you want to say, official Wrexham supporters club. So shout out to the Killarney's Red Dragons. We'll be having our first membership party this weekend, even though we've been watching all the games together. So something else that you may not know about me that I just threw out there that I do off the job, that's just fun. It's just fun to go watch the games. It's fun to support a club. And following the Welcome to Wrexham story, it's just a good story. Like, I feel like what those guys are doing over there in that town in Wales is just cool to follow. And sure, it's a show, and it's reality TV, and we all know it's scripted and blah, 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 whatever you want to say. It's a cool story. It's like real life Ted Lasso. There he is right next to me, as you guys see all the time when I do the videos anyway. And Roy Kent, my new camera will slide over. There's Roy Kent right next to him too. But anyway, that's enough babbling about me. I want to get to my guest today because we have a lot to talk about. And a lot of times, you guys know, I'm already very friendly with the guests that I may bring on, or I've known them from one way or another. But today is one of those guests that somebody was like, you have to have Kevin Mahoney from Aura Prep come on. And I was like, okay, send him my way. And here we are. So Kevin, what's happening today?
Hey, how's everything, Pip? What's going on?
Nothing. Do you follow any English football or anything like that? Or was that just total banter to you, like you knew nothing?
No, I don't follow any of it. I just got into soccer actually about 10 years ago just because my kids play it.
Sure.
I still don't know what the rules are.
You still don't know offsides like Ted Lasso? I don't know what offsides
I
is.
can get that. My little guy's a goalie, so I usually stand on one end and then I stand on the other end and I stay away from everybody.
Right, goalie parents. So both my sons did play lacrosse. They've just recently given it up to pursue the arts. But my younger son was a goalie, and goalie parents are a different breed, I feel like.
Yeah, my number 4 is a soccer goalie. My number 3 is a lacrosse goalie. So
okay.
He's just getting into it. Yeah.
Big difference in scoring there too, because for a lacrosse goalie to let in 10 goals in a game is totally okay. For a soccer goalie to do that, and you're like, kid, you gotta play somewhere else in the field.
Yeah, exactly.
I always found it was always fun because with I guess with soccer too, but when you switch sides, you switch with the other goalie parent, and you have that kind of like, oh, hey, either your kid had a good half or a bad half or whatever, but you have that understanding of what kind of talk you're going to have afterwards.
Yeah, I root for the goalies on both teams. I could be watching my son in goal. I'll even tell the other kids that they're off sides. So, yeah, at a young age, a kid's got to learn. So, and I want him to have the opportunity to make the save.
Yeah.
So he's got to get some action in there. That's how he learns.
Supporting the goalie on both sides is just a great way to be a good parent. And listen, I'm not gonna lie, I am kind of happy the boys stopped lacrosse and went more into this music thing that they're into. Because I don't have long weekends. When you sing a gig, you just show up at the gig, you sing it, and you leave, as opposed to, 4-game tournament. I'm out the door at 5 a.m. I'm not home till 10 p.m. So my own little bit there.
That's my next weekend, man. I got 6 games.
Oh my God.
And of course, the one day we have a 7 o'clock. We got to be there at like 7:30, and then the next game is at 1. So good luck trying to figure that out, what we're going to do. But
it's such the joys of parenting, right? Where
yeah,
you're
we
like,
get creative. It's okay.
And you got to go. Some days we're there Saturday, some days we're there Sunday, some days the same with the boys now. They're not in the same bands, so we're going to that kind of a thing, but it's way easier than sport ball, as I say.
Yeah.
So how many kids do you have, being we're on kids?
I have 4.
Oh my gosh, good Lord. We tapped out at 2. So what are your ages?
I tell everybody two's a good number. I'm 12, 13, 17, 18.
Oh my gosh, holy cow. Okay. So you're in that better stage though, where they take care of themselves for the most part, at least, right?
It's funny you mention that. I was at my cousin's 50th birthday party a few weeks ago, and I don't even give names. I number kids. My number 1 drove my number 3. My number 2 drove my number 4 there, And then my number one drove all the little guys home when my daughter went out afterwards. I didn't have to pick them up or drive them there.
Oh, what a
So that's
win.
that was definitely an epiphany in life for me.
So I think so. I'll use your system. My number one Finn is 14, and we're getting closer to that driving. And I know it's going to be so exciting because I don't have to bring him everywhere. But then I'm so scared too, at the same time.
Yeah, you lose your daddy Uber privileges at that point.
Oh my God, yeah, I have the sign. I want to. Like I keep saying, I'm getting the sign for the car that just lights up for Uber for them.
It's good. But my daughter swims on Mondays at 5:45 in the morning, so now she drives herself. So
Oh,
I don't miss that drive. But it's like being at work sometimes. You just got to run. You get up and go.
that's what I told my wife when the boys were born. I'm like, this is just like work. Like I wake up, I take care of somebody, I go back to bed, just like that. This is okay for me. I can handle a night shift.
Yeah, yeah. I wish I had a lot of bedtime, but it doesn't work. I always say we're sleep when we're dead, right?
That's it, man. That's what it comes down to. So being you jumped over to work a little bit. So what is it that you do in the emergency services field as your main job? First, we'll talk about that one a bit.
So right now my main full time job, well, they're both full time technically. If you want to clock hours, I do work for New York City Fire Department as a lieutenant in Engine 43 in the Bronx. And then I'm the CEO of Aura Prep, which conducts training for EMS courses, active shooter, first aid, CPR. We have collaborations with a lot of different colleges within the New York City and New York State area, where we run the EMT program there.
That's pretty cool too that you're able to collaborate with the colleges because I became an EMT a really long time ago. Let's just say, like, where are we coming in on here? We're coming in on almost 30 years, and we went to the local fire academy, and there was like no collaboration with anything in college during that time. Um, and I feel like it's cool to see that kind of change in the EMS service and using colleges. But is that something New York has always done, or
It's something we started engaging in. I think a lot of times where colleges ran the program, it was really sustainable, revolving around the one person who was running it.
sure,
And if that person was to retire or quit or leave, the college lost their whole EMS program. So we're kind of a turnkey operation. I always say we have van will travel. So we basically partner up, a lot through continuing ed, and we have a collaboration to where we all promote each other, and we just run a hybrid program through the different colleges. It allows us as the people who are active in the field and who are providing care and to kind of run the EMS portion of things as the subject matter experts, let's say, as opposed to somebody the college administrator doesn't know all the nuances with the Department of Health, the rules, the regulations, because it's completely different than the college. So
sure,
we run high school programs, so where we have different rules for a grading system for a kid to get out of high school versus being a provider. Because yes, you might be able to graduate high school with participation or attendance, but in reality, when you're working on an ambulance and providing care, we kind of expect you to show up. You don't get extra points for that. So we have two grading systems for something like that. Because our goal is to make people not just to pass a test or get out there, is to make them providers that can get out there and think and learn and keep on growing.
and which is so great too. Because again, if I went back, 30 years to my time, I wasn't getting prepared to get a career in EMS. I felt like when I was in EMT class, I was just getting prepared to be an EMT and ride on the volley squad or that I was on at the time. Where what I feel like now with EMS is you're seeing it as a almost like a trade and almost the same as fire. I know on the West Coast is very different than the East Coast, how they do things with high school programs. But I think
Yeah.
that's just great for a high school student to just get a little bit of an introduction into this world that we work in.
Yeah, and that's exactly what we built out in one of our programs to where, you know, at first we started with just seniors and it wasn't enough. We were making them EMTs. Then we went to the juniors and started making them CFR. Then we created a whole entire course that's like a intro to emergency preparedness or intro to emergency services. So we start teaching them about the system and we just kind of rope them into their whole high school like career or high school
Sure.
experience. And I think, with this field, especially EMS, not so fire. I don't think there's much of a recruitment issue on the one end, to where with EMS, if we get them in at 16, 17, it becomes part of their life, and especially some areas that we serve, to where it's an opportunity for a lot of kids that they would never be able to have.
Sure.
And there's a lot of good young kids out there that, if given the opportunity, they're going to be able to perform in what we do.
Which is just awesome too, because like one of the things we always talk about with EMS is the salary, let's say, and it really isn't that great. It's definitely not what it should be, and I'm sure your opinion, just like mine, for the amount of work and the amount of knowledge you have. But again, you're coming out of high school at 18, 19 years old. It's a good paycheck for you. Like that's a good career path to start in, and it's not, it's not a horrible salary. It's not like you're working at the mall or something like that.
It's definitely a great pathway into the medical field, a great pathway into emergency services, which is funny because we always argue, where does EMS lay? Where does it lie? Is it an emergency service or is it in the medical field? And I feel like, we straddle both sides of it. We're
Sure.
unique is EMS is unique, like in New York City, the last mayor took a beating saying EMS is different, but he was right. EMS is different. It's just what he was saying, it wasn't appropriate.
It
But
wasn't it wasn't the
EMS
way
is
it should
different.
be, right? Because we are all different, right? So law
Yes,
enforcement is different, fire is different, EMS is different. We all cross paths for the same type of reasons, but we all have different things that go on, and especially on the EMS side, when I went to medic school, I went because I wanted to be a medic and I wanted to learn more, but that's real deal medicine, and I thought it was crazy when I did my rotations in the ER. I'll never forget an allergic reaction came in, and I'm like, cool, let's go. Epi, Benadryl, oxygen, like here we go. Like I'm going to get stuff, and the nurse was like, no, no, we have to wait for the doctor to come in to do this. And I'm like, wait, what? That's not how this works.
yeah, no, it definitely have a lot of freedom, but with that freedom comes training and staying on top of it. You can't just take a class once and then, hey, I'll see you in 4 years.
Yeah,
But it's definitely unique. It's a unique job and experience, and there's a comparison to, at the end of the day, even when the cops and firefighters, when we're done with our jobs, the last people sometimes we still need to see is EMS.
yeah,
So that that because we have jobs that sometimes where we get hurt, and so that they're there for the EMS providers are there for firefighters and police officers all the time. So, and I think sometimes that's not pointed out enough.
for sure. And I think too, you're in a little bit of a different place than I am because Jersey is just its own, whatever you want to call it, in so many ways in the emergency services. But I've seen being around the nation where when EMS is integrated with the fire department, it definitely has a better, just like kind of a better feel for it, I guess is a good way to say it, because everybody's kind of doing everything and everybody kind of works with each other a little bit better. And I feel like in your department, that is occurring more and more each year, at least from an outsider's opinion.
I mean, I think in EMS as a whole. I mean, listen, we could talk about the New York City system forever. It's unique. There's nobody else really like us.
Sure.
There was a merger 26 years ago that really wasn't a merger. It was a merger with hostility. But through the years now, with what we call a promotional exam, where people come as EMTs and paramedics over to fire, it's the amount of experience that's in the fire operations side right now, is a lot. I mean, we get accused of stealing all the good EMS providers. And there's various different reasons, and people tend to leave the EMS field, for many different reasons: sanitation, fire, nursing. So there's that whole recruitment versus retention argument in the EMS field. That's a nationwide problem at this point that people get into. And I think we focus a lot on recruitment, but I think where we fail to focus on is the retention side of, just the mentorship and stuff that needs to put in place.
It's
I
so
feel
hard though, right? Because I mean, I left EMS to go to fire. That was always kind of my plan though. I'm not gonna say it was for any reason, but at the same time too, you're running. You know what I mean? Like on an ambulance, on a busy medic truck or EMT unit, you're running calls the entire shift. It's almost unsustainable to stay without having some kind of a stepping stone to go to, or something along those lines.
Yeah, it's a gateway. I hate the word stepping stone, because
It
You
hurt,
know,
and you're right. I agree with you too. It's
yeah,
not the best word. I
I
just don't have the word for it, I guess,
yeah,
right? Like I don't know what the word is.
it's a gateway, but there's no reason why somebody who becomes a paramedic can't stay and be a paramedic. How do we make the paramedic's job easier, better, and happier for them when they go there? And it's kind of hard because you take a paramedic who works in the Bronx, or any EMT or paramedic that works in the Bronx. As soon as you go available, you're getting hit. There's not
Yeah,
many days where you could just say, okay, all right, we're gonna go grab a drink at 7-Eleven real quick. It doesn't happen, and sometimes people who make decisions on executive levels try to figure out new formulas and new ways to do stuff. But the reality is, I left EMS 22 years ago. I was supposed to have my medical to get onto fire September 12th, 2001. So that usually means you get hired within a year. I was the first class after the 11th. I got hired in October. But like the call volume when I left on a busy Friday night was 4,000 in the city. Now they're doing 5,500, 6,000 calls with the same amount of people.
exactly.
So it's like the call volume's through the roof. The membership size is still the same. And I feel like this is no matter where we travel to, no matter who we talk to, it's the problem. You could just take this problem and just move it to Nebraska. It's going to be the same issue.
Sure, just less people, less units somewhere, and the same issue occurs. And it's just you want to say you learn from past mistakes, but I feel like we're still not getting it for what we need on this end.
Yeah, no, and it's just I just not too long ago we one of our clients, a SeatGeek, sold an AED to them. And the person's job that I was dealing with, her title was experience coordinator. Her job was to make sure that when people came to work, they had mints, they had hair ties, everything you needed. They had a whole bodega in their facility. You can go in, you could get a Monster, you could get whatever those energy drinks people drink that I don't. People who know me, you will tell you they don't want me drinking an energy drink.
I
Coffee,
just love that you
cereal,
use the word. It's the first bodega ever said on my podcast. I'm so excited someone
bodega.
finally used it. Lots of New
Oh,
York folks, no one said bodega, but that's right.
yes, that's definitely a New York thing. So, well, corner deli for anybody else that needs to hear this around the country.
Gas
Um,
station for a lot of people.
Wawas,
Yeah, yeah, there you go.
But it's just like how do we make the experience at work better? And the
Sure.
reality is, if even with any tool, any machinery, if you're running it 24/7, eventually it breaks. It's the same thing with our providers. If you're running them for 12 hours or 8.5 hours straight, eventually they break. And the problem is with EMS, it's like it's not a physical broken. I feel like in fire operations, we have a lot of physical broken. In EMS, it seems to be a lot of, what breaks is the mental part,
And
just
as we're
mentally
learning more
wears you
about our mental health on all three ends of the service, I feel like EMS, like you said, that is the part, where it's just, and I tell people, because I'm sure you're at this point, we're kind of in the same part of our career where you'll get people who are like, hey, my kid is looking to do your job or wants to do something in emergency services. Can you tell them about it? And I don't really like to, I'm not going to lie to anybody. I'm like, you have to realize that, if you take this EMS job and it's a great job and it is so rewarding and it is such a rush when you're practicing medicine like that, it's all the stuff you see on TV for sure, but more of it is what you don't see on TV. And
down.
that's the fact that you just had this traumatic call and you go back out to the bus and you're going on another call. And that could be another traumatic call. Like you didn't even have time to process the first one and you're
Yeah,
going to do the next one. And that's where, like, when you talk about like an experience person, and I would hate, that would be the last job I'll ever take in my life is to be the employee experience person for an EMS department because that would just be the uphill climb like no other. But how do you fix that, right? How do you stop that from occurring every shift you go in there?
yeah. It's the problem is in EMS is it's there's severe lack of mentorship. So this is where my uniqueness or somebody who's worked both sides understands. My firehouse got 5 probies the last class. 2 days on their second tour, in between tours, they're still there. I go down the stairs. The probies are talking to the truck guys. The other probies are talking to the engine guys. they're breaking them in. There's an automatic cultural, mentorship in place.
Sure.
The problem with EMS is that it's so young at this point, is that your mentor could be 6 months on the job, a year on the job. So I think what a reset, like a total reset of that field, needs to happen everywhere. And the people who are on top have to realize that being on top is not doing anything anymore, and they need to take a few steps down and reconnect with the people. And when we study for in the fire department and we read the books, our books are like 3 feet high for a 100-question test. One of the things we remember is people before paper. Like you deal with a person before the paper. And I feel like this field with technology, especially since COVID, people like to manage via email. They like to manage via policy.
Sure.
And the reality is that with this generation and the kids coming out, and I gauge everything off my 18 and 13-year-old, they want to be involved in the process. And if you don't make them involved in the process, they're automatically going to fight the process. And so you got to be an open book. You have to be transparent if you plan to be a leader in any type of agency these days. So if you come up with a plan, you have to bring some type of working group in. I call it the Swiss cheese. They got to fill it in and beat it apart. And so you could come out with a good plan. And then you have those people you brought in are now your advocates in the field because they were part of the process. And I feel like that's lost a little bit.
And I love that the mentorship kind of analogy you used, where like, and oh man, we got jobs happening there.
Go get them, brothers, right?
It wouldn't be a New York episode if there wasn't sirens in the background, I guess, right? Like, but
Yeah.
you brought up the mentorship in the firehouse, and I have a double house too that I'm in, and there's just so many options to pick your mentor, especially when you're new. And not only, I don't even say pick your mentor that shift, right? Where when you're on the ambulance, you're with a partner who is going to be your mentor, and you may absolutely hate that person. I've worked with some people on an ambulance, and I'm like, I cannot stand this person at all. And you're alone, and you're stuck with them for 12 hours, 16 hours in an ambulance because there's really no station to go to in a lot of places. But in the firehouse, you have those options. And I think those options are so important that they can latch on to different people for different skill sets, like latch on to you for EMS stuff, latch on to this guy because he's a good roof guy, latch on to this guy or girl because they're a good driver. And they don't really see that much in EMS because you're just stuck.
I joke around too, where you latch on to somebody to learn what not to do.
Or there's that end of it too. Yeah, that's
There's those guys also.
even bigger one that I left out right there, right? Because you're like, see what's going on. That's one of my favorite like pro-y things when they come to you after maybe like a month or two and they're like, yo, do you see what he just did over there? That's not right, right? Like that's totally not right. And I'm like, nope, totally not right. Don't do that.
Yeah. It's just like fire service, like at least where I'm from, yeah, I'm the lieutenant, right? But I'm not in charge.
Nope.
Like I joke around. I say there's upstairs problems and downstairs problems, and nothing ever really comes upstairs. Everything is taken care of through that mentorship process, and a lot of times in whether it's a private ambulance or municipal agency, there's not that guidance that and it's just, and the people who could guide at this point, they're just happy they could just go to work, do their job, and go home. They don't want to do the extra. So what's the incentive for those people? I know it's money all the time, but sometimes I say if you pay people $200,000, they still be leaving.
Sure.
No matter what. So there's a lady. Hold on.
Man, the
Got another
second
one
thing's
coming
coming
by.
out.
So a lot of horn there. They might be going to something. I'm right over the border into Long Island, so it's a little bit different over here than it is in the city. But they made me lose my train of thought now. I forgot what I was
We're
saying.
going into mentors and how we're going to keep them.
Yeah, how do you keep them motivated? I always say there's somebody every morning that takes a bus Monday to Friday or takes the train Monday to Friday to go to work that makes $46,000, and they're happy going to work. And EMS providers make that money plus more. So yes, money, livable wage is definitely needed. But a lot of times we can't fix that. If we were in charge of our department tomorrow, especially if you work for a municipal agency, you have your union, you have the government, you have the whole process. We could support it, but we can't fix it. So if you're a leader of an organization, what could you fix? How could you change the day to day work? A lot of times in EMS, people don't have a break. Maybe a 15-minute break out of service, no matter how many calls you're holding at this point, because you need to invest in your providers, is what it comes
Yeah, it's
down to.
just like the organizations where, you come in and there's a fresh truck because they have other people stocking the truck. You're not just going into relieving the crew, jumping into a truck that might have been trashed. Someone else takes care of that for you. I've always heard that I've never gotten to work for an agency like that, but I've always heard that was a big thing that kept people happy, that like, oh, we just walk in and there's my truck. I'm good to go.
Yeah, it's tough, man, and I feel like for people who've been in the field for a long time, they just sometimes lose the passion. They get frustrated. You get burnt out, and I say like EMS sometimes to me. If you look up the signs and symptoms of an abusive relationship and remove the sexual content from it, it's what you see. It's what you see, and it's like we need outside therapy at this point in the field because we continue to try to fix ourselves. There's no case in therapy where somebody has an issue where you say, okay, cool, I'm going to go in the bathroom every morning and I'm going to talk in the mirror and I'm magically going to fix myself. It comes to a point of where you can't do that anymore. But we continue to try. We
Well,
continue to
because
try.
we're the fixers, right? We fix all the problems, right?
We're-
That's our biggest problem is we're fixing everyone. How do we fix ourselves?
Yeah, and there's so much contention between fire and EMS culture, especially in New York City, just because of the pay disparity and just the difference in the culture. That even the good things that each other do automatically get fought, even if it's really really good. You can have a chief of department put something in play that was a fire chief through his whole career for EMS, but you might have supervisors underneath still fighting that because when they grew up in the abusive family, this is how they did things. So it just gets
It's
passed down
so
generation
crazy.
to generation,
And
and
guys are so big too that like it's so hard, and but you hear the same things about these smaller organizations as well, that like they're having the same problems and you're like, but there's only 4 units. You should be able to fix a 4 unit system where you guys have hundreds of units, and it's such a hard thing to roll out. So systemically, we're not going to fix that on this podcast today.
No, it's definitely the smaller agencies too. And the only thing I can say is that there's a lot of agencies that are very dependent on a few individuals to hold an agency together. Outside of the big municipal agency or the fire department in the city, maybe it's a volunteer or a private ambulance. But if you're somebody who's in a unique position and you're running stuff, and you don't have somebody else that can do your job, if you get hit by a bus tomorrow and have to be in a wheelchair, you're failing as a leader. You're like you're a failure, and there's no other way for me to put it. I mean, I'm not going to beat around the bush. If you're the only one that can do the job that you do, you are failing as a leader. You are failing us in this field, and that goes for fire and
Sure.
EMS. If you don't
But
push on what you know, you're failing the future, and you're failing the crew that's going to be coming to you when you get older and you're not working anymore.
and again, we have that cool thing in the fire service, with our tradition and our mentorship again, where like, the guy sitting behind me when I'm the captain and the guy sitting behind me, they're seeing me do my job every day. They're really a big part of it, and they see how I do it and they get that mentorship. And I always tell on any company that I'm on, I'm like, everyone needs to be able to do everyone's job. Not everybody's going to be a great driver, operator, pumper, anything like that, but you need to know how to do it just in case. And when we get that attitude going, I'm a captain, I act on the car sometimes, but I'm telling the lieutenants how I'm doing things just to prepare them for when they get to my role. And we don't see that in a lot of other organizations, or other services as much as we do the fire service.
No, it's definitely it's needed. It's lost in EMS a lot. Like I said, it's easier to sit in your office and send emails than to go out and speak to people.
Right.
My staff, when we do our EMT classes, we have an app that we use for staffing. I can send a reminder for an open shift. Nobody will sign up. If I pick up the phone and have a conversation, people sign up. So you have to be personable. You have to get out there. Like we're not just shield numbers, we're not just badge numbers, we're not just unit numbers. You have to get out there and you have to know your people, and they need to know that you have their back.
It's interesting too that you bring it up that way, because like technology is great, right? There's my phone, I'm on it all the time. I have apps for 8 million different things. I feel like I can show If I'm going to teach the younger guys something, it's much easier to show them a video online of something actually happening somewhere than trying to teach them. It's just the way young, like you said, your kids, the way they learn. They learn more video based learning than they do anything right now, right? But some of these apps we're using are taking that personal ability or personality out of our job.
Yeah, and in the field of EMS and fire, where you need to interact with people who are in the time of their need and family members that are going through complete distress, you cannot sit there while your members are working on somebody in cardiac arrest and text their family member in the next room. You have to speak to them. You have to look at them eye to eye. You have to have that, that therapeutic communication that we talk about and we try to teach, and it's lost. It's almost like we need to focus and teach that in class how to be a human being before being a provider. Sometimes,
Yeah.
you
I
know,
mean, how to
like
communicate, right? Like
yeah,
how to just say whatever, it's such a big part when I get out of the car, get out of the truck, how I come across to the people that are standing there, whether it's a real emergency or it's a fake emergency, they think it's a real emergency. So I have to be ready to communicate with them in any way possible.
yeah, and we become so complacent because one of my original instructors said, 99% of the stuff we're going to go to is BS, and the other 1% is the OS. And you always need you need to be prepared for the OS. So it's like you always need to, and to me, the firehouse is always amazing. Because we get interrupted when we try to eat a lot, to where how we can go from one specific conversation and then the tones go off and we're like Pavel's dogs and we'll just snap into work mode. It's always amazing to me how 20 seconds can make a difference in our world.
Yeah. And then you come back and you go right back into the same conversation.
Yeah, but the good thing about like a firehouse culture versus where EMS doesn't have it, you have a group of people that you could sit back down with to where you could discuss stuff, you could debrief, you can kind of let loose and let stuff out, and where EMS is just you and that one partner, and maybe you can't really talk to them. Where if you had it amongst a group, or maybe at the ER when there's 3 or 4 units still there and they're just going available, you can have that conversation so you could decompress and you could debrief and you could take those opportunities to learn from each other. But I feel like in EMS, no matter what sector, private, municipal, 911, transport, it's like you can't do that. God forbid if you're standing around for 2 or 3 minutes to give yourself a little decompression time. We're holding calls. We're holding calls. You got to get out. You got to go available. There's some systems where supervisors sit there. As soon as you walk out, they see you and they put you available.
Yeah. And you're going.
So
And
it's
that's it.
like, once again, managing the computer versus the person.
I mean, there's systems where when you arrive at the hospital, you're available, but the patient's still on your stretcher. maybe I worked for one of those systems for a little while where I'm like, and there's a difference from being like, hey, we know you're at the hospital, but we're holding, as opposed to just, okay, you're going to 123 Main Street now. No, I can't go anywhere. I still have to take care of this person. And
Yeah.
the people that I'm going to drop this person off to are not necessarily happy to see me. Let me explain that to you. And they're not going to be very grateful for what I'm doing right now.
Yeah.
So,
Definitely a lot.
and it's definitely a lot too when you think about, how long we've both been doing this too and trying to process it all. And that's kind of where I get into what I talk about here in the podcast too, is what else you do off the job that helps you process this. So what have been your experience, some of the things that you've been doing off the job that really are what matters?
I, I tell you, my business is been basically my fun. We've been in business for a long time. We do EMS education. I had the opportunity for when our counterterrorism task force started in New York City to be the lead trainer and develop that program and make friends with a lot of our counterparts in PD, and train for our active shooter team and our rescue task force, um, and build out a program like that we can really take on the road. The luxury we have, or I had, being in that role, being part of a big agency, is I got to do a lot of training. And, I was able to put 3 days of training that brought in 2,500 to 3,000 people in every 18 months. And when you do a lot of training, you learn a lot of things. And when you learn a lot of things, it dictates policy. So training to me is really, really important because through training we could create policy, but sometimes people believe policy is made because they have the brains up here all the time and they have the best ideas. But the reality is, I can have the best idea in the world. I could kick it to our team, and then they could Swiss cheese group it. I call it all the time. They poke the holes in everything, and it needs to be adjusted. And you find out these adjustments through training, especially when you're dealing with two separate agencies. And we learn taking, we've been to Texas, we've been to Pennsylvania, we've taught down in Florida, we teach in Virginia every year. And we appreciate going to these different areas because every time you go somewhere, you learn something different from every system,
That's my
So
favorite part of training, right? It's that
yeah,
networking. And this what we're doing now. My podcast, I feel like my podcast can just be changed to networking 101 because that's what really gets you to where you are. And when you're going specific for training and policy, look, I have friends that do rescue task force in California that have gone to active shooter events. That's something I've never gone to. I want to
yeah.
meet them and talk to them about what they're doing and how they do it, what's worked, what hasn't worked. It may not work 100% for my department, but at least I can take something from it and be like, hey, we can try this.
Yeah, and the whole southern tier of California has been ahead of that game for years. They each riding position has all the paid departments. They've literally been way ahead of all of us, except for the Arlington area. I think they were kind of like the developers and founders of everything that created Rescue Task Force stuff. So yeah, but it's been so many years, and I'm surprised when we go to the conferences and we do stuff, and we just go into conversation with people how there's still areas that haven't even sat down at the table to work together with their counterparts.
Sure.
So whereas if it's like one of those things that it'll never happen here, it's amazing to me, and sometimes there's just a lot of politics around getting that type of program together because you are dealing with fire, EMS, and PD. In some areas, it's just fire and PD. In some areas, it's just PD and EMS. And you can literally take it down to one personality to where you could have a fire chief that says, "No, we're not doing that. We're going to take care of it ourselves." Or you could get an EMS or a police chief that does the same way. So it's hard to break the barrier sometimes. But if you don't sit down and talk, you never get anything done.
And that's such a big part of it, right? Is again that networking, even in our own departments. Like my department is getting together our rescue task force slowly but surely. And again, the wheels with these things they turn slowly. Whereas folks like us in the emergency services, we are go go go. This has to go, and that's one thing I can say for like if you want to talk about the upper floors and the leadership. Everything takes so long because it's just the bureaucracy of wherever you are. It just is. And then folks like us get frustrated, right? I know I'm frustrated a lot when I go to work and things aren't changing the way I want them to. But you want to hope to me that they're at least attempting to change, right?
Yeah. And some departments, it's tough. If you have a really, really big department, my buddy who's in the Navy, they say that big ships turn slowly.
Sure.
And, by the time you roll out training over 18 months, it's old already. What you got is not new anymore. Or just a procurement process to get through stuff takes so long. By the time you buy the stuff, it's old.
Yep.
So but what are you doing on your level? Who are you pushing? Who are you trying to do stuff with? Because I know for the fire service, dealing with fire and EMS, when Rescue Task Force first came out, there was a little bit of a resistance. And putting all the union stuff aside, and the reality is that when we go out and the tones go off, we operate. It doesn't make a difference what we pull up to. We pull up to, there's a problem. There's an open hydrant to a school shooting or some type of other event. We are going to find a way to do something. And I want to have these conversations, and I want to be able to sit down with our counterparts so we can coordinate what we're going to do so our members could operate safely, because they're going to put themselves in an extremist situation anyway. No different than a private dwelling at night with fire on its first floor. You're going to go up on that ladder. You're going to go into that private dwelling, into the bedrooms, and you're going to put yourself at risk because at nighttime somebody's probably sleeping as opposed to a vacant. You're going to be a little bit. So we're going to put ourselves at risk. How do we make our members maybe not do that at certain times or be better prepared to do that with the proper training and proper equipment?
And I think too with Rescue Task Force, and for my listeners who are not, so I do have listeners that are not involved in the emergency services. What we're talking
Okay.
about is when you have an active shooter situation, putting police, fire, and EMS together so that we can help as many people as possible that are involved in that situation while keeping us safe. Because what's happened in the past, and this is over a 30-year span of these events occurring, we've learned from each event. And one of the best things that they've found is that if we all work together and we use some stuff like we use in the fire service, hot zone, warm zone type of things, police officers didn't really know what that was before, and we all bring our experience to the table, we can not only keep ourselves safe, but we can help and save more of the victims of this event. And it's growing and it's becoming more popular in different areas, I guess is an easy way to put it, that they're joining forces to make this rescue task force. Right? That's a good
Yeah,
way to
and
explain it, I think.
yeah, no, no, definitely. And then I had a great opportunity to go to an area that had an unfortunate event in Vegas, to learn to bring back some of the best practices. And I can tell you the things I learned in the week being there, and how those members operated, and the things they did, and the things that we write on paper that we say we're supposed to do, but we know we extend ourselves and do more. They had their stuff together. They were really organized. They were really prepared. Their members went way beyond and did things they weren't supposed to do. Because, like I said, when something happens, as police officers, firefighters, EMTs, paramedics, we're going to pull up and we're going to do our job. And sometimes we're going to do a little bit more than what our job should be. And for people who are not in emergency services, that's the passion you get in every single time from the overwhelming majority of providers coming to you. So that's the service you get, and like it's not Lululemon countertop service. You know what I mean? Like, we're there to fix problems and help you and save lives. And that's what we do.
I like the way you say that too, right? Because I always describe our job as like calculating risk. But like you said, we do always, almost always overextend ourselves a little bit, right? And that's where our risk calculation, our risk assessment skills come into play, where, you risk a lot to save a lot, you risk a little to save a little type of a thought process. But I just like the way you keep saying, like, we do overextend just a little bit. And that's something everyone has to keep in mind for the younger providers listening. Like, it's not go running in. It's, hey, we can do this and get right back out. Let's keep going and do something else.
Yeah, it's just and in the fire service too. I mean, we have a luxury of having manpower, and I always say too, being mature is knowing when it's okay to do nothing and stand there and be ready. That's where the term "standing fast" comes from. You
Yep.
don't always have to be doing something. Know your role. Do
It's,
your
it's
job. Know your role.
such a great thing to think about, right? Just know your role. You don't always have to. I don't always have to be in charge, right? I know it's a misnomer for some folks, but like sometimes there's other people that are in charge, and I can just stand there and be like, "You're in charge. Tell me what to do."
Yeah, it's the old joke when you get promoted. They say, "Oh, look, you could do anything with a flashlight." I'm like, man, if you needed a flashlight in a fire with the engine, you're in the wrong spot, man. Fire's there; they don't need my light. You have good members that do good work. They do their job. Like I'm lucky. I'm lucky to work where I work. So I work with professionals every single day. And we've been very busy lately. And I get, in the fire service, when you do go to fires, it's an unfortunate event for some people, but it brings that firehouse or that group of people together. Um, you know, we're I say all the time, it takes a special person to go into a fire. Who goes into a fire? So
And
and
not
and
smart people like us.
and for years, I was always against. I hate it, and I cringe to this day. Where people who are not in the fire service, we go to a fire, we take a picture afterwards. And I feel terrible because we're taking a picture for somebody's house that just burnt down. But that's part of our decompression. That's part of our future. There's a picture that goes up in the firehouse at some point. There's pictures in the firehouse of guys that have died. That I'm happy that those pictures are up because you have something to remember them by. So for people who think that get a little offended by it sometimes, I cringe still. I never liked it, but I get it. I get why we do it. It's we live in our own crazy world sometimes that people just don't understand.
I agree. I've never been a fan of it, but I understand why. And that's the easiest answer I have for that type of thing. And there's some that I have where like I have one that pops up in my phone every now and again. I was an engine captain. I was an engine captain at this fire, and we were out training three of our probies on pump ops. I took them all with me. I'm like, just give me this one off the truck. There's enough people here today. And we had a fire come in around the corner. So I ended up with my driver, who's a senior man, me, and three probies going into a fire together. I'm like, this could be a good picture. I like this one. Like this one could work. But you see those things, and it helps you remember that day. I might have forgotten about that day if it wasn't for that picture.
Yeah, remember that day. Think about that fire. It starts conversation. The best drills or the best way to teach is talking. It doesn't have to be so official. I feel like in the fire service we tend to have a culture of pressure, as opposed to a culture of teaching and mentoring. And sometimes we put pressure on our members a little bit too much, which causes fatalities or causes severe injuries. So we have to have a realistic approach, and an end goal to, why are you doing the drill like this? What's our goal? What's our objective? What do we want the member to learn from this? You know, um, it's never good to just do a drill or an exercise anywhere to try to embarrass somebody. Not, you want to teach
Sure.
them.
It's
You want
all
to
about
teach them.
learning, right? I
Yeah.
feel like this whole career, and you said it before with the EMS, like this is just learning. Like every day I'm learning something new, whether I'm at work or not. Even with my kids, I learned things that I did as a parent that I took to the firehouse to do my other parenting job there of being a boss there, right? Where I have my other kids, as my wife calls it, even though I'm one of the children, literally I'm one of the children. I just had a conversation with someone where, let's say when I was the boss, somebody was trying to get one over on me and what they were doing, right? And I'm like, I'm kind of proud of them because I'd be doing the same thing with my boss if I was in his situation, type of a thing. So I'm not going to be like, oh, you're totally wrong. I'm just going to be like, no, you're not getting away with that. But it's those things that, you're just learning and learning and learning that I love about it. That's my favorite part.
Yeah, I feel as you go up too, you see things from a way different perspective.
Yeah.
And it's sometimes when you're in, just a firefighter or just a probie, you see things one way, and then as gain the experience and you see things other ways. And I don't know, I had an old captain that said once I got promoted I was going to change. My friend of a long time goes, nah, he's not. I feel like I'm a very consistent person from being a firefighter to a fire officer. It's just I like to have a little realistic approach, like you said, risk versus reward. And do we really want to fight this battle now? Is it worth it? How about we just do our job and call it a day,
Oh, it's not the
and
best.
just
Just do your job.
put it to
But
bed.
speaking of learning, the reason we were introduced is from our good friend Amy, who is in charge of the Vital Signs Conference up in New York
Yes.
State, which is happening in a couple weeks here. You're going to be there. I'm going to be there. What are you doing there? Let's start with you first.
So we're up there with Aura Prep and RTI, just one promoter on business, and having a booth. Looking to expand to other agencies that need training and want to hop on board with our hybrid program, which kind of decreases travel time for providers, which is important for people who are upstate New York. We actually have a lot of Jersey people that come over to Manhattan for training. That's a whole other different story. We could talk in person with that,
I
but
can only imagine.
yeah, but it's and we're running for the first time this year the Vital Signs Games. So it's a fun, competitive. You and a partner, you and two other people on BLS, ALS track. We teamed up with BMCC, Borough Manhattan Community College. They're going to be running the ALS skills. We're going to be running the BLS skills. Everybody's going to go through the same scenario, and they're going to be judged with a performance rubric and grading system. And the winners are going to take home a cup. It's going to be like the EMS Games Cup, New York State Vital Signs EMS Games Cup. No different than the Stanley Cup. And then you get to take it home for the year. The winners get free registration to next year's Vital Signs, and they bring the cup back with them, and they try to defend their championship.
Oh
So
God, don't
it's
lose the
good. I
cup.
think. Yeah, what was that?
Don't lose the cup. Like if you win, don't lose the cup. I would
No,
be
no,
scared.
don't lose the cup. I'm actually picking them up this week. So it's like, you have the cup, and I just think it's something that I wanted to bring to the conference. Because it gets the younger people involved, it gets older people involved, and maybe it gets everybody involved. It's just something cool to do, but it's stress free. I've been at other like conferences that are bigger, that are maybe nationwide or worldwide, where they have like competition. Like people
Yeah.
come in and they have like looks like they came off of a helicopter.
They
Like
got their
that's
headlamp
not this
on. They
one.
got their bag on their back. I've seen it. Yeah, they got
Everything.
everything.
They got the special strips to write their notes. Their tactical scissors. Like that's not this one. Okay, this is a laid back, comfortable one. Come have fun. Nobody's watching you, so if you feel like you're insecure, nobody's watching you but the people who are evaluating you, which is all our instructors, the CIC, CLIs. They'll talk to you afterwards. It's a good learning opportunity to get put a little bit under pressure and get put into a scenario.
And that's good for learning too, right? That little bit of extra, it's not that added stress, but just even talking to the people afterwards and, hey, what did you do? How did you handle this? How did you do that? You're going to learn something from that, right? And even the people that didn't compete. I think when they do have it, because I know we have it in Jersey, and I want to say for the finals, you can watch on like a closed circuit TV in another room, because I've been at that conference a couple times, and like
Yes.
people are watching it, and it's like, well, what would you do there? Like you got all the answers, but you're not in there now. So what would you do in that situation? And I think it's great.
It's always easy to be the person watching the fish swim. It's hard to be the person that it's hard to be the fish swimming. So when you're on the outside looking in, you have all the answers. But when you need to make those quick decisions, it's tough. But no, it's good. Listen, Vital Signs is good. It's a great event. We've been going for years at this point. You get all your New York State updates, and the good part about it is that you have your downstate. Obviously, New York City, Long Island is a whole different world than upstate New York. And
Yes.
I always say, if you want to be a provider where your hospital is 40 minutes away. In New York City and Long Island, people, oh, we're the busiest, we're the busiest. You're spoiled. You have a 10-minute drive to an ER,
Yeah, a
so
40-minute transport is never good.
no, no. So those are the providers. Those are the people I love speaking to upstate. Like so you get to learn like things that like man, I didn't even think of that. A moose accident or a moose attack. You know what I mean? You could have a moose attack up in New York Vermont border. You're not getting that in Suffolk, Long Island. So it's a
If you
whole
are, there's a problem.
yeah, it's a whole different role. Like we in New York City, it's a rarity where we'll airlift somebody, where it's common practice upstate to where there's that criteria where we wouldn't even think about it. So it's good just getting out there, speaking to different people, listening to the presenters, getting your CME if you need, and then they have a great social Saturday night. We actually have our company thing, which is a little bit earlier, so I'm hoping to bail out of there and go to the state social. It's like a cool place they found that has like a whole bunch of old video games like Pac-Man and stuff like that. That's Saturday night. So we're gonna be up there. You'll hear us. You haven't been to Vital Signs before.
I have not. This will be my first time, so
I promise you'll hear us in the vendor hall. We're loud.
it'll
We're
be easy to
fun.
find then.
Yeah, we're loud. We're fun. We do little competitions. Our things we give out zebra cakes, little Debbie zebra cakes.
Oh, like the
Um,
dude did in the Gator show. He gave the dog the zebra cakes.
yeah, that's what
Sorry,
we do.
it
People,
was a thing in the firehouse for a long time. The Gator guys were very popular in my shift, my house.
Yeah, so and you'll know where we're at. You will know. You'll find us. We have about 25 of us going up from we're instructors. We have a big crew going up, so we're gonna have some fun up there. And if you're in the area, it's a 3-4 hour drive. I recommend definitely you go to register. It's open still. There's spots
Yeah,
available.
registration is still open.
Yeah.
So I'll be up there for my first time too, kind of helping them out with some social media stuff, doing kind of like what I do. Kind of the best thing is getting in front of a camera and running my mouth. Essentially, is like my latest skill in the emergency services that works out. But just trying to meet different people and get what they're up to out there, and like what companies like Aura Prep and RTI are doing. I'm also going to get some time in the morning just to kind of talk to everyone about the importance of taking care of themselves. There was some talk about, hey, let's do fitness, let's do that. Doesn't really work at these conferences. I've done that kind of stuff before. It's more just getting people in that mindset that they should be taking care of themselves. And then I have a session in the expo hall where we're just going to try to be engaging with some simple fitness stuff that you can do while you're on duty, just again to take care of yourself. So I'm super stoked to be up there, man. It's going to be a good time in a couple weeks. Third weekend in October.
Yeah, the 16th to the 20th in October.
What day
It's
is the
funny
games?
it's funny you say the fitness and taking care of ourselves. when I teach basic CPR in the corporate world, I always tell people we tend to treat our cars better than we treat ourselves. You
Yeah.
know, we do the oil change, we do the rotation. We literally worry about our car more than ourselves. You know, when's the last time you went for your annual? You know, when's the last time you had all your tests done? You know, are you at the age to where you got to get that colonoscopy done? You know, like
Best
we
best
don't think
sleep of your
about it.
life.
Yeah.
Best sleep of your
So it's
life is your colonoscopy, folks. Jeremy and I talk about that all the time. We just saw, so it's funny you mentioned colonoscopy. I'll say it here at the end because maybe no one's listening, but I just saw that, like, I don't know, it's like Steve Martin, Chevy Chase, and not Dan Aykroyd. I don't know, or Martin Short. Allegedly, all go get their colonoscopy together. They hang out, they do their prep together, then they go get it, and then they go, hang out afterwards. And I was like, Jeremy, we should do this. This would be like the best thing for firefighter health and wellness. And he's like, I'm in. He's like, best sleep of my life. I'm like, I'm totally in. Let's do it. But we both got to wait 5 years now because we both had ours. So it's
no,
not going to be for a while.
yeah, no. Listen, we joke about it. I mean, but even guys and coming on after 9/11, there's something about the fire service where guys are coming down with colon cancer in their 40s, early 40s.
Sure.
You know, like I just hear more and more. So pre 9/11, post 9/11, obviously there's a lot of cancer studies with our gear. You know, the term we use is, clean is the new salty. Especially the type of fires we go to these days and everything we're exposed to. So we can work for a very long time. We can make all the saves that we want. We could get the best pension in the world. If you're dead 2 years after you retire, what's the point?
Exactly.
So we really do need to take care of ourselves, and we don't. We forget ourselves a lot because we're so used to helping everybody else, and we don't help ourselves.
100%. And that too, and that get checked out. Like, go get your annual physical. Like, we're really fortunate in New Jersey. We have the Gift for Captain Bushio program. I've talked about it several times on here. I'm already scheduled. My wife and I are scheduled for December. When we go get it done, they schedule your next year annual. I'm like, this is the best thing ever. Like, it's on the calendar. It's a great date for us.
Yeah, and early detection with a lot of things is key. I know a lot of retired guys that were on a job for 9/11. We get our annual. They do their regular annual, then they do their 9/11 annual, like so they're having an annual every 6 months.
Oh, wow.
So they can stay on top of stuff.
Yeah.
Because the reality is more people getting sick than people who passed away that day, who were serving. And it's not going away anytime soon.
No, and I'm sure too, and at Vital Signs, because at a lot of these conferences, there are people doing screenings at conferences now. Like, that's a great place to go. Where I don't know, I know in New Jersey we just got like the cancer screening trailer that comes to your department, but they just did it at the FMBA convention for whoever could. They get as many people as they could to try to do the cancer screening.
Yeah, we have a good program. Actually, a retired fire lieutenant. He started he's a physician assistant, teamed up with a cardiologist, and he does like the FDNY heart. And he does all the screenings for everything you need. Because the reality is sometimes as we get older in the fire service, we get a little bit out of shape, we get a little chunkier. Maybe you need that carabiner to put your bunker gear on, and we don't really eat as healthy as we should. It's just good to get out in front of those stuff and have that. Anybody who's in medicine knows having a baseline to compare once something happens is important, and he gives that baseline. And everybody should take advantage of programs like that.
My wife actually met him a few conferences ago because she's a PA as well. So she was like, "Hey, look, you know this guy?" I'm like, "I do know that guy. I've never met him though, but you did."
Yeah, no. So Rob's a good dude. He's a really good guy. Does a lot of work and saves a lot of guys' lives.
Isn't
He
that
put a
so? That's
comfort.
it. You just said it. No one wants to say that, right? These folks that in medicine are saving our lives, right? You have
Yeah,
so many people getting caught this pre-screening things, like they're literally saving our lives. And
yeah.
to me, that's the big thing that we need to keep looking out for each other about.
And it just goes to like building that environment. These services available all over the place, but he chose to build that environment to make the members comfortable to go to do this. Like it's funny you said that with the colonoscopies, but that's what they do. They block out firehouses. They'll take 10 guys from a firehouse at a time. They all go together. There's a big table there. It's like a kitchen table, and you go through your screenings. He made the environment to make the members comfortable going
That's
in,
awesome.
get this done. So it's good work, and there's tons of people out there that do good stuff like this. But we got to take advantage of it.
For sure, Kevin. So I've kept you for about this hour, and I told you we were going to have this happen where it's going to be like, how are we going to do this so long? And then we're more towards the end. But where can everybody find you out there in the world if they're looking for you?
I mean, we're, Aura Prep is on social media, so you can find us on Facebook. Just looking for Aura Preparedness. Instagram, Aura_prep. Same handle for TikTok. Um, you could search me, Kevin Mahoney. You know, common name, but you'll find me.
I was,
You
I
won't
was going to
miss
say
it.
there's probably a lot of you out there. There's probably a lot of you out there that are firefighters as well. Just one of those names that,
There's,
firefighter
there's
name.
actually there's actually three Kevin Mahoney's in the New York City Fire Department. So every time I give a lecture where I kind of stir it up a little bit and be controversial, I always let them know my middle initials M. So if they want to email me or if they need to complain, I want them to complain about the right one. I don't want to get the other two guys in trouble.
Oh, I thought you would. I thought M was someone else's initials because that's what I would
No,
do. I
no,
would
it's
be like,
fine.
I would use the R. Like if there was a Kevin R. Mahoney, I'd be like, email
It's
him if you have complaints.
it's hilarious because the other guy is R and we're the same rank. You know,
I'd be like,
But no,
email the R if you
listen,
have
I
problems.
love passionate discussion. So I will have a passionate, respectful conversation with anybody at any time. So I'm not fearful of that. They can bring it. I bring the game every day.
That's awesome. And Kevin R. Mahoney, I just literally picked a letter out of my brain there.
That's
So
him.
sorry for throwing you under the bus, buddy. I don't even know you, but that's the way it works sometimes in this world, right?
Yeah, just go play the lottery later.
Nice. So listen, man, we got to finish up here with the size up 10 quick questions that never go quick. Are you
Okay,
ready?
I'm ready.
All right, what's your choice, beach or mountains?
Beach
How about a night out or a night in these days?
out.
Yeah, because you got those kids that could drive the other kids around, so you're in.
Well, if I'm in, I'm working. That's the problem. So I got to get out.
Got it. How about a movie everybody has to see?
Ugh, I'm a terrible movie person. Wedding
Oh,
Crashes.
which one?
Wedding Crashes.
Wedding Crashers. Okay, that's a good one. Good Firehouse classic right there.
Yeah,
Yep, definitely
you
a
can
good one.
watch that movie at any time when you sit down, no matter where it is, and still find it funny. You don't need the story.
Yep, not even close to needing that story. All
Yeah.
right, here's the hardest one. Cross country road trip. Who is your celebrity co-pilot? They can be living or dead.
Celebrity co-pilot. Oh Lord. This is where you got to think about: do you want to take somebody that's stuck with you so you can pick their brain and learn from them, or you just want to have somebody who's fun? Um,
No one has admitted that yet, but you. So,
you know why you see his movies and he's better. He's a bit of an introvert, but I'm pretty sure Adam Sandler would be a funny guy to go cross country with.
oh, Adam Sandler would be good for sure, man. He's filming a movie in New Jersey. I see it every day on social media. That he's still here. Happy Gilmore too. They're still filming it. In case you didn't
Yeah,
know, in New Jersey, filming it.
he definitely has to be an interesting person to hang out with.
Be a good one. No one's picked him before, so congrats. Number 5. Do you make your bed every day?
50-50. But I will say this though: if you do wake up and you make your bed, depending on you feel good though. It's like your first accomplishment every day.
That's
I've
it.
seen that speech on Facebook for I think the retired Navy SEAL.
Yep.
It's definitely a
Navy Admiral. I think he was an admiral, but yeah.
Navy admiral, right? Yeah. So
Definitely a good one. That's it.
yeah,
How about a book everybody should read?
I'm terrible at reading books. I think we all are. I did start reading this book recently though. Is How to Buy Back Your Time because I
Okay.
saw it on a TikTok. So if you're in business, it's definitely a good book because, like you said, you could be consumed in business and you could eat up all your hours. But it's basically the premise is that you should be hiring people to buy back your time, not to do a job.
I like it.
So yeah, so that was a good book. I still didn't finish it. I don't think I finished books ever.
I'm currently in your dilemma. I have like 5 that I've started because of this. People suggest books to me, or people guests have written books. They've sent them to me, and I'm like halfway through, and then I get another one and I start. So it's been my current dilemma.
It's the adult ADD that kicks in, right?
100% right there. Which one are you taking, Kevin? Highways or back roads?
Man, it depends on what mood I'm in and where I'm going and what do I got to do. It's situational, you know.
Okay, I'll take that as an answer. It's situational. That's fair.
It's
Some
situ-
people are straight, like I need a highway because I got to get there. Other people are like I don't care, back roads. But it
I
could be
mean, if there's
situational.
traffic on the highway, I'm taking back roads. I hate sitting in traffic. I'll leave sometimes at 11 o'clock at night to drop something off to avoid traffic.
I can understand that. Knowing where you live and where you're going, the traffic there
Yeah.
is the worst. How about a bucket list place to visit?
I got to make it to Ireland. Last name Mahoney. I got to
Yeah,
make it
you
to
probably
Ireland.
should at some point, right?
Yeah, Ireland. I'm half Italian, half Irish. I joke around. I grew up in a Spanish neighborhood, so I said I'm half Italian, half Irish, and Puerto Rican. Um, so it's yeah. I definitely need to make it to Italy and Ireland.
Nice. Which one do you prefer, football or football, aka soccer?
If my son is playing, I want football, the real football. If it's a Sunday or any other day, I'll take my football Americano. Um, the problem is it's kind of tough to watch our teams these days.
It's pretty rough.
So
This year is rough. If you're liking the same New York City team as I do, then it's really rough.
yeah, the blue guys, the blue guys are tough. I mean, the
It's
green
pretty
guys
tough.
aren't any better.
But baseball's exciting right now for us, right? There's a big game tonight if you're a fan from the team from Queens like I am. So we're
Yes,
yeah,
yes,
big game tonight. We'll see what happens.
yeah.
All right.
I'll be at work tonight. I don't know if I'll be able to watch it.
Oh man.
The neighborhood controls my life.
Oh, well, hopefully you get to see it. It's a late one tonight too. I got to stay up late. I got to work tomorrow. I'm like, oh, I got to stay up late to watch this game, especially after last night. So anyway,
It'll be worth it.
last one. Best advice you could give to your younger self.
Best advice to give to my younger self: listen, and learn from the people that you need to. You got to be able to identify those people, and you have to listen to them and take the good. It's like we took an instructor class years ago. It didn't work for everything in our market, but we had 4 or 5 ideas that we were able to take out of an instructor class that we implemented in our world. Expose yourself, get out there, meet people, meet good people, surround yourself with people who are driven the same way you are, and find one person, no matter what is going on in your life, that could whisper in your ear and tell you to shut up at this moment or you're doing something wrong. You need that person in your life. You need that person to say, hey,
100%.
take 20-second time out, come over here, I gotta talk to you. That is not gonna
Kevin,
they're not gonna tell you something to be nice. A real friend is gonna tell you when you're being an idiot.
Kevin, I cannot thank you enough for this hour. This has been a great talk, man. You said you could
Thank
talk forever, and I do agree. You could definitely keep going on all these topics, but that take the good line and that way to finish, like that's the title of this podcast, and it is something we can all do better of just taking the good, right? And everything we do, just take that good and bring it
Yeah,
in.
keep pushing it forward.
Awesome, man. Well, again. Thanks to Amy for introducing us for sure, and I'm stoked to
Definitely.
hang out with you at Vital Signs in a few weeks here.
Amy and Eisenhower, the EMS siren, doing good stuff for years.
That is
So
her out there. Yep. I don't even know when I met her, how we came across each other. It was somewhere at a conference, I'm sure. Networking, like we talked about
yeah,
before. So
got to get out there. So we'll see you up there. We'll have a nice glass of water together, I'm sure, at some point.
for sure.
And,
Definitely
and
healthy stuff
you know,
together at a conference.
cool. Well, I'll see you then. I appreciate you having me. Definitely good talk. And if anybody has any questions or ever, I don't know if you put anything, put my email in there, K Mahoney, Mahoney at auraprep.com, AURAPREP.com.
Awesome, Kevin. Well, thanks again. And thanks to everybody for listening. Thanks to Amy for introducing us in the Vital Signs Conference, where we'll both be at in a couple weeks up there in scenic Rochester, New York, way upstate. And as always, for the Size Up by National Fire Radio, this is Pip. And remember, what you do off the job matters.
National Fire Radio.